There we go. So we will be sharing it on the BTA website, and all the presentations will be available afterwards. So, I hope you enjoy the next hour and a half of presentations. And as I say, please try and get engaged. Ask any questions to me in the chat, and I'm happy to forward them on, or I can ask unmute you, and you can ask the question yourselves. So we'll make a start. The first company talking to us is RiskPal. We're joined by Tom Bacon, who is the COO at RiskPal and has overseen the implementation and many of the features that make the platform so unique. Having managed risk consultancy services for a variety of global organisations, Tom has more than 10 years' experience working on risk management platforms, including as a geopolitical director at Protection Group International and as head of risk and analysis at G4S Risk Management. So, Tom, I'm going to spotlight you, my friend, ask you to share your screen. You've now got 15 minutes, and over we go.
Great. Hi, everyone. Nice to be speaking to you all today. Thanks to BTA, to David, to Julie for giving us the opportunity to speak. I'm just sharing my screen now. Hopefully you can see that. Can that come through okay?
All good, my friend.
Yep, great. Thank you. So I'm joined here today by one of the co-founders of RiskPal, Colin Pereira, who will also be able to answer questions towards the end of the presentation. So RiskPal is a new travel risk assessment platform, which we believe is sort of transforming perceptions of duty of care. Now, it's a multifaceted platform with several features, which I won't go into and demonstrate today because time won't allow, and some are not so specific to the arena for TMCs. So I want to focus on these two areas of duty of care and destination and supplier feedback. Now, duty of care is a concept. I mean, it really picked up post 9/11. We see new sort of iterations of conceptions and definitions of this on a regular basis. But we really think that the last year that we've all experienced in the pandemic has really quite significantly transformed this. And as for TMCs and for travel risk assessments, is actually what this has emphasized is the importance of not just destination-based risk assessments, whether that's typically that will be a sort of city or a country profile to accompany your booking information, which will come from, I imagine many of you have relationships with third parties that provide that. And it's very, very valuable information. It's an industry that I've spent sort of the last 10 or so years working in. But we think that in alone is no longer enough in terms of duty of care, and understanding activity-based risk and activities for travel are equally critical and will become more so in light of COVID and the changes that we've seen. So that's the first area I'm going to focus on. The second is the concept of destination and supplier feedback. So traveler feedback. My work over the last few years in speaking to travel management companies, as well as travel managers or risk managers in large organizations, is getting that traveler feedback is so difficult. And there's many tried and tested ways in which of doing that, but have come up with barriers that usually relate to scalability and the time and effort it is to follow up with returning travelers to capture that really, really valuable feedback on whether it's a destination, a place that's stayed in, it might be a local transportation service. So the nuances that travelers can bring and the insights they can bring when returning from a destination. And we think that is critical to both organizational safety and best practice, but also giving our user base a reward and information so that when they're coming back for their next trip, they've essentially got peer-reviewed information on their destination or potential suppliers from trusted colleagues. So these are the two areas that we're going to look at with regards to RiskPal. Just in short, our aims are risk assessment is kind of shrouded in perceptions of, oh, this is a tick box exercise, it's laborious, it involves cut and paste, it's a challenge. We want to change those conceptions and make it a much easier user experience and part of the kind of travel booking experience. We want to integrate it and have integrated it with a managerial approval system for travel. As mentioned, there's the area of sharing feedback in a simplified manner. Stepping back to the duty of care aspects, we look at providing access to a library of professional. I mean, we in the organization have more than 20 years experience in terms of travel risk management and high risk management experience and health and safety advice. We want to allow organizations to have oversight of their travel activity. And what COVID has really proven the importance of is giving your staff or user base access to quickly changing information. And COVID has proven this. And what we saw with COVID is actually a central database where the information is changing so quickly, whether that's government regulations, health safety best practice advice on travel or restrictions to travel, is really, really valuable. Just the point on excelling, we really think this is around going beyond just compliance and leading in duty of care. And we think building sustainable health, safety, security, and risk management travel practices are critical. So we launched RiskPal in April. Challenging time to launch a new product in mid a global pandemic. That's definitely to be said. We initially launched as a travel and high risk travel risk assessment tool. Again, both of those activities somewhat were curtailed in the last 12 months, but it did have its benefits as well. It showed that we could quickly pivot RiskPal towards providing COVID relevant risk assessments, but also we think in the longer term, and this is in the next 6 months, we'll start to see this, staff in organizations are now much more au fait and willing and accepting of the requirements around risk assessment because of what the pandemic has shown. And we think that will also ultimately facilitate good use of the platform. It also comes amid a higher number of insurers that are actually requesting risk assessments for travel that have a COVID component to them. And all of this also comes this year with the emergence of this ISO 31030 accreditation, still yet to be released, but some of the features of that do orientate around risk assessment, evidently, health safety considerations, and valuably capturing traveller feedback. Now, we are not an accreditation body for that. We hope that perhaps working with TMCs or working directly with clients, we can help them on that journey towards accreditations, both in this and the several others associated with risk management. So I'm just going to jump into RiskPal now itself, which you should all be able to see the dashboard of RiskPal. So ultimately it's a SaaS platform, so a software as a service platform. It can integrate with internal corporate SSO with booking processes as well. And I won't, as mentioned, highlight all the features, but I just want to show you from the risk assessment register, this would essentially be a permissions-based library of the risk assessment activity that your organization is undertaking. We're going to use this example of a Cape Town marketing conference, and this is a view-only feature, and I'll just highlight quickly the components of a risk assessment that RiskPal offers. Prior to doing that, just note each of these features, so country profile, risk mitigation, that relates to activity-based risks, supplier information, communications, are all customizable or configurable, and you can choose what you do and do not include in your risk assessments. So if it's something domestic, perhaps, or low risk, there may not even be, for example, a necessity for communication protocols. But what we see in this example is just the project name, the department, the dates. You have a series of automated rules. So depending on your department, that configures who will be the point of approval or the list of point of approvers for that travel. And that also could be the designated TMC in this instance as the first point of approval. Project information, details, overview, risk summary. This is all a pre-populated one for the purposes of time. You can attach documentation in here. So for example, I've included some information around COVID anxiety for travel. Where I mentioned earlier around destination-based threats, we take this from WorldAware. There's several ways of visualizing this information. And it contains information on the likes of geopolitical, terrorism, civil unrest, all the areas you'll be familiar with these third parties providing. Where, however, we hope RiskPal is different is in the ability for organizations or TMCs to customize their own country profiles. And we haven't seen this on many other platforms. So in this case, my name as a company is RiskPal Media, for example. Here I can customize and provide information specific to my workforce going to South Africa. So that could be around your individual protocols, what you need to consider when going to your office in Pretoria, Joburg, wherever it may be. In this case, I've used example of around just providing our workforce with information on, we've got vetted hotels, transport providers in the supplier database, and just some information on something to be aware of based on feedback from staff on Tambo International Airport. This is where we think RiskPal offers activity-based, where we think RiskPal is unique is about activity-based risk information. So you have the option to assign specific activity-based risk information on the task that you're undertaking. So here is the question of, does your assignment involve international travel? You get some general mitigation advice that you take from the platform, but importantly, you can build this, you can edit this, you can own this yourselves or use the information already available. And you can add in new questions as a sort of corporate configuration point of view. The end user would identify some mitigation measures they will take and assign severity, likelihood scales. All of this is entirely optional when you're building the risk assessment template. So I've got examples here relevant to COVID, and we have a library of those. Crime, harassment, kidnap, so about petty crime, something around fire, around safety, where you're staying, information security, location, and each one comes with some general mitigation advice and the ability to populate what your activity-specific measures are that you will be undertaking. There's a library of about 500 questions across health, safety, information security, and travel security that are available within RiskPal. So moving on, this is your supplier list. These are the companies I'll be using when going to this destination. Again, it is optional. I won't dwell on this too much because I'll show this within the feedback remit. You have a communications tool in which you highlight your, and this is again automated based on the project members that you've filled out who are, or the travelers who you've filled out who are going on the trip. And in the event of crisis communications, it could be around your check-in schedule, local hospital information, your medical evacuation company. If you're working with, I've used the example of NGS here, Helix, ISOS, whoever it may be, you can embed this information into your templates so that the user isn't having to fill out this same information every time they're going through a booking or a risk assessment process. They don't have to locate this. It's an ease of use process, and it comes back to an easy process to fill out a risk assessment. Not time spent searching for information, but actually focusing on the information and the activity and destination risks that matter. Within this, I haven't highlighted is the approvals process, but there is a series of notifications once the risk assessment is submitted, in which case the team and the approving managers are notified. They get a PDF, which looks like, which I'll just highlight what that looks like. And that is sent to them. And this is the end product that comes out. Again, this can be branded according, you have notification of when it was finally approved, date of approval, and then this is the risk assessment that would accompany the travel. And I just will obviously for time purposes fly through that. Again, sometimes it's much shorter. If it's domestic travel, for example, or project, then it would be a much shorter piece. Just very quickly on the returning date for the traveler, they will get a notification saying, hi, welcome back. You can customize when they get that and the frequency of reminders that they get, just asking for some feedback on the process. They would then log in and have the ability, you see here on Cape Town marketing, this was the trip, to come in, see, okay, yep, I had Hilton, Cape Town, I'd like to review them, got the ability to review that information, whatever it could be, save that information. And likewise for Cape Cars, you can do the same process. And for speed, I'll just do a simple review. You also get destination-based specific questions around safety, security that you can customize within the system as well. Here we've got around information you'd like to share with returning travelers, and did you leave any equipment behind, location-specific security information or safety information. And then you submit that. You can choose if it goes through a moderation process or not to designated personnel, and therefore it contributes to what we have here is a supplier database within that your organization can access. So the next time a colleague is going to, in this case, Cape Town, they've got peer-reviewed information on, okay, this was from a previous review, on a service. So just before wrapping up, I'll just come out of RiskPal. Ultimately, where we'd be interested in sort of TMC, why I think this might be interested is, we know it's been an incredibly difficult year in terms of travel. We think that there is key interest in sort of helping our customers improve their duty of care, their accreditation journey, their assurances around safety for their staff in travel. We want to help facilitate that organizational knowledge sharing, which we think is going to be critical, is really to building sustainable safe practices within organizations. There's a whole component I didn't highlight around, we do support crisis management by having access to emergency profile details. This is all in an entirely GDPR compliant way. We're waiting on a few legal definitions, like I know everybody is at the moment, around, does this include information on traveler vaccine passports and information as well? There's data analytics aspect within RiskPal that we think could be interesting to understand, not just destination relevant information on where you're going or where your clients are going, but also the activities that they're undertaking. And the area that we'd be looking to work on is looking at booking integrations. We haven't done this yet. Obviously, we're less than a year into the business, and do offer sort of on-premise or single instance solutions, branded solutions within, for organizations that might be interested in that. Sorry, I went a minute over, but thank you. And if there's any particular questions that we don't cover today, here's an email. My name's Tom Bacon. Sorry, I should have put my own email on this as well. Would love to hear from you, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Tom. Can I ask you just to stop sharing your screen for me? That'd be great. Wonderful. Are there any questions from anybody at all before I start? Anybody got any questions like to ask? Nothing's come through on chat. Nothing is. Can I ask, Tom, do you currently work with TMCs? Are you working with or planning to work with TMCs right now at the moment?
Yeah, so we're not at the moment. So we've focused for the last 12 months on, so the origins of the company are from a risk management company that focused purely on media risk. So we work with some of their travel processes, but this is really our strategy for this year, is to explore relationships with TMCs. And we think the time is ripe to do that now because of the last 12 months really, and the impacts of the pandemic. Okay.
And when you talk about the country information, if somebody's already working with an incumbent, can you partner that up? If you're getting the information, can that all be incorporated into the tool that you've got there?
Yeah. So if they have an API, then we're entirely agnostic to who that is. So if you have an existing relationship with, for example, Control Risk, they have an API and they want and happy to provide that, then yes, that's fine. We have a development team full time, so that are working on RiskPal constantly, so we can apply that to any third party.
Thank you. And is it mobile? Is it mobile responsive? Can we use it on our mobiles?
Yeah. I mean, we don't typically recommend filling out the risk assessment itself if it's complex on mobile, but in terms of the approval process, feedback process for the traveller side, then yeah, that's absolutely. We're working on a series of improvements on that right now as well.
Brilliant. Well, we've got no more questions and I'm mindful of time. So thank you for doing that, Tom. And as I said at the start, we will be showing all the presentations and contact details on the BTA website afterwards. So if there's anything else you need to contact Tom, Tom's details will be on the website and the presentation will also be there. So thank you very much indeed for that, Tom. And I'm now going to introduce Elise Webber. Elise Webber is from Skytra. During her 15-year career with Airbus, Elise has held various international management roles in communications, performance management, lean and business process improvement. strategy and business development, where she's built up a breadth of experience and a vast network in the aviation industry. Elise holds 2 diplomas in communications and executive MBA with majors in finance and marketing. So if I can spotlight you, Elise, and ask you to share your screen, and over to you for 15 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting Skytra at the BTA Innovation Hub today. My name is Elise, and I'm one of the co-founders of Skytra. So Skytra is a 100% Airbus-owned subsidiary. We are based in London, and we are a benchmark administrator. So we just got the regulatory approval from the Financial Conduct Authority. And maybe you're not familiar exactly what a benchmark administrator does. And in a nutshell, it gives us the ability to produce indices measuring the price of air travel in different geographies in a regulated manner. So I'm underlining the fact that it's regulated because it opens up a new field of application, new use cases that require that indices are regulated. And what we're going to explore today is how these new resources, these new air travel indices, can help to facilitate and to simplify air travel contracting. So I'm going to share my screen. Does that work okay?
All perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Good. So as you might have read in the press, we just got a regulatory approval. We had quite a large coverage, and most of the articles were focusing on the use case that these new indices can be used for hedging. So obviously that's not what we're going to be focusing on today. We are going to focus on a second application on the air travel contracting. So how can these indices be leveraged to simplify air travel contracting? So first of all, I'd like to focus on how air travel contracting is actually perceived today. So we have talked to a number of people that are involved in air travel contracting, be it airlines that want to sell air travel to corporates, or corporates, but also TMCs. And this is how it's perceived in a nutshell. It's a rather long and painful process for coming from A to B. And there is various reasons that are mentioned. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but often, for example, from a corporate perspective, people are asking themselves, well, do I actually get a good deal? Or is it just better if I buy a fare out of the open market? There's really a lack of transparency in what is actually the reference price for air travel. Some airlines complain saying, well, often I give big discounts, but I'm also expecting the volumes, but sometimes the volumes then don't come and I've given away the discount in the first place. Then often it's also highlighted that it's very controversial, and lots into these negotiations, everybody comes with a bunch of data and saying, my data shows this and my data shows that, and that's actually not really value added. Both of the parties, be it the buyers or the seller, would rather focus on value-added services. And also right now, as we have seen, what is much more important is the well-being and the safety of passenger. And it's a very time-consuming process. And this is often driven by the fact that all these negotiations are actually done on an O&D level, on a letter class level. It's very granular. And what is this whole revenue management system that was built by airline might well work for an individual buying a ticket because it permits airline to optimize their revenues. But for buying, let's say, more on a wholesale, like big volumes, it's far too complex. And all of this needs to lots of costs for everybody that is involved. And in today's context, this is actually not an industry that is sitting on a lot of cash. So it's a good opportunity to think about how to do it different. So tomorrow, that's what I'm going to explain, air travel contracting could become more transparent, more balanced, less time consuming, and also involve less costs. The way we see that working, and that's what I'm going to explain, is to leverage the Skytrax price indices that will provide a new and objective and a regulated way of measuring the price of air travel on a regional level. So let's quickly focus on the Skytrax price indices and how they actually look like. So the Skytrax price indices, the metric that we are using is something that is well established in the industry. It's not something new, it's simply the dollars per revenue passenger kilometer. And that's a nice harmonized metric because that's how an airline is measuring how much they earn per kilometer. But likewise, it is what the traveler is paying to be transported 1 kilometer. So it's actually just both sides. It's a metric that brings a buyer and a seller together on one common unit. And so as, of course, pricing is different in the different geographies, we didn't come up with one index representing the world. Together with airlines, we have defined what are the different regions, how are we going to structure these indices to capture the different underlying dynamics of each market. So the first regions that we have launched and that are now available are 6 indices. So there's 3 interregional indices and then the connecting flows. So for example, a North American index, a European index, an Asia Pacific index, and then the interconnecting long haul routes. So these indices are published on a daily basis. And I'd like to share with you a screenshot on how they actually look like. And I don't have a sufficient time to go through all the different dynamics and the shapes, but you can already see at the first glance that they all look quite different. So they have all different seasonalities, they have all different pricing. So for example, the blue line representing here Europe to Europe is on a per kilometer basis, the most expensive market. So on the y-axis, you see here, for example, 0.2. This means 20 cents per kilometer. So you see that evolving over time. Here I've from 2018 until last month. And what you can see is that, for example, the European market in normal times is much more volatile compared, for example, to the North American market, which is a more consolidated market, except that in COVID, and that's what you see here, at the beginning of March, it was actually the American market who was impacted the most in terms of pricing. And we saw pricing falling off the cliff by 40%. You can also see, for example, what is very characteristic is that on the Asia Pacific market, you always see these price increases at the beginning of the year around February, March, which is actually just the increase due to the Chinese New Year and prices surging during these periods, as opposed, for example, to the Europe to North American market, where the most price increases are actually more during the summer, where really lots of people want to travel. So I can't go into all the details right now. I'm happy to share that in more depth if people are interested. But just in a nutshell, we are covering the world. So these are economy class indices. We do have also business class indices. They're not regulated yet, but we can launch them based on customer demand. So these indices, in order to be accurate, of course, we had to source the data in order to present all these averages all across the world. So what we've done during the last 2 years is to set up a methodology and by which we actually aggregate 2 data sources. We have built up a database which contains 83% of worldwide ticket sales by value. So it means that on a daily basis, we see ticket prices coming in from all around the world. It's more than 400 carriers. And we are using 2 main data sources to achieve that. We are partnering with IATA. IATA has a data product called DDS. And the nice thing about this data product is that it captures direct and indirect ticket information. So you're all familiar with how airlines are distributing and selling their tickets. They can or directly sell through their website or go through travel agents. And IATA DDS contains both of these transactions. We complement that with a secondary data source from kiwi.com for matching the pricing information. So in order to save some time, I'm not going to go exactly through the methodology that we use, but as we are benchmark administrator, and this is part of being regulated, all the methodology, everything is publicly available on our webpage. So let's focus now on how these indices that are, again, measuring the dollars per RPK in the different geographies on a daily basis. How can these air travel indices be used for easing the contracting? So there's a couple of considerations here, and I'll go through step by step. So first, what's really important is to compare a travel spend, for example, of a corporate with the Skytrax price index. Now that's just schematic. And I also have to mention that it doesn't need to be just one corporate. It can be just a bundle of corporates that are, for example, today already customer of a TMC. What you would typically do is to see what the offset is between a corporate and the Skytrax price index. So as, for example, we are capturing all the tickets worldwide, typically corporates are slightly above the industry average in terms of pricing because of their booking behavior. They typically book higher letter classes, they book more short term, and they have also an OND mix that makes it more expensive. So here, the example is that the corporate multiplier is 25% above the index. Once you have established, for example, how one corporate or a set of corporate is compared to the index, what you then can do is to discuss, okay, what are all the services that, for example, a corporate wants to have included into the contract? And so you have a base fare component that is index linked, but then you have the possibility to add lots of additional services that the customer wants. And actually lots of corporates said, like, we would love to get more services as part of our contracts. As a consequence of this discussion, you can actually then define the formula. And this can be for one company or for a set of companies. And the way it's working is pretty simple, is that you have already established how much more, for example, a company is paying in average compared to the industry average. You can then add another element, which here is really for illustrative purposes, value-added services. It can be just floating, or it can be just a fixed price that gets added. So the example here, how a ticket would be calculated, is that you take Toulouse to Heathrow, it's 880 kilometers, times the index value on a given date, and we are producing the indices on a daily basis. You then add the corporate multiplier, and if you want some value-added services. But this is really negotiation-based, a question of negotiations. You then come up with a corporate fare. And what you then need to discuss is which type of commercial model you want to implement. So from all the discussions we had, there's a strong tendency towards point of sale discounts because it's easier to implement and it doesn't include all the complexities of a back-end rebate by which then the corporate needs to redistribute any type of back-end rebate to the rest of the organization. These index-based contracts can actually be used for corporates when an airline is negotiating directly with a corporate. And in this case, TMCs can support also the adoption of this new index-based RFP process, because every time there's something new, people need to get their head around what does it mean for the contract. So TMCs can support that. But likewise, TMCs can use it themselves for negotiating their fares, because that's a big value proposition of TMCs, that they have preferential fares with airlines that they then can pass on to a set of corporates. So both use cases are possible. And if some of you are interested, I'm more than happy to give more insights on that. how it can work and how it can be adapted to the specific use cases. Thank you very much, and I'm open to get any questions if there are some.
Thank you, Lise. Can I ask you to stop sharing your screen for me?
Sure.
Much appreciated. I can see everybody. Wonderful. Any questions from our audience today at the moment? Anybody got anything they'd like to ask? No? Okay, we've got a couple here from me. So who will be responsible for calculating the index-based fares?
So today we're looking into two options. So we are running two proof of concepts right now. And there's two options on the table. One is the airline itself. So depending on the level of sophistication of the airline, some say, okay, that's not a problem, we can do that. Others might rely on an intermediary. So there is a couple of intermediaries that are well placed in the distribution process already that can actually automate that on behalf of the airline. So there's these two options.
Okay. And where do you currently stand with regards to the implementation of all these products? I know you mentioned, I think, certain stuff is waiting for regulation. Where are you in your journey?
So for the regulatory approval, it's tick in the box. We're regulated. It's brand new. It's just like 1 month old. So that's the reason we have now launched the two proof of concepts that are currently between two airlines and two corporates. We're looking at various ways to implement them. But what we would also like to do is to launch a proof of concept actually with a TMC, because there are slightly different considerations, and we at the end want to make it work for everybody. So everybody who is interested in being an early adopter of that, we are more than happy to accompany this proof of concept.
And how's this been received by the airline industry?
Oh, very well. I mean, we have developed the indices with the airline industry. I mean, as Airbus, it's easy to knock on airline's door and get feedback on something. So actually, the indices were developed together with a dozen of airlines because we wanted to make sure that they are fit for purpose.
And finally, how do you see Skytra's role in the contracting model? You gave some illustrations. How do you see your role in that?
Yeah, so there is actually two phases. Ultimately, what I said at the beginning, we are a regulated benchmark administrator. So the business model of a benchmark administrator is that you produce indices in a regulated manner, and then you just sell licenses to end users that can use these indices. However, now in the first phase, when it comes to shaping how these indices can use, we do more. We support actually proof of concept, data analysis, implementation, and so on. But this is just for the initial phase. Then once the model is established, we will actually just limit ourselves to providing licenses for the end users to use our regulated indices.
Thank you. Okay, any questions before I hand over to our next presenter? No one waving at me, nobody chatting to me. You're all very quiet today. I'm assuming you're all here. I can't see many people, but we'll take that on trust. Well, Elise, thank you very much indeed. As I said, your presentation and contact details will be available on the BTA website. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, David. It was a pleasure.
Good stuff. Now we're going to hand over to Gavin Smith. So Gavin is from Element. He's the director and owner of Element and has over 20 years experience across corporate travel, technology, corporate payment and distributions. He started Element Technology in October 2019 and is mainly proud that they've managed to survive. They're also really proud that they made the shortlist, the Startup of the Year in 2020 in the Travolution Awards. So Gavin, I'm going to spotlight you, my friend, and the floor is all yours.
Thanks, David, and thanks everyone at BTA. It's good to see so many familiar faces today. Haven't seen those names and you guys for over a year since we were at Business Travel Show last year. So it's really great to be able to spend some time with you and give you a bit of an understanding of what Element is and what we do, and how we are hoping to be able to, well, we're aiming to, and we are helping smaller business travel agencies run better with technology. Just share my screen with you. So I'm Gavin Smith. For those of you who don't know me, I think this is my third iteration coming into the BTA. Well, first as BTA, last year I was GTMC when I was at HRS and Concur. We started Element in October 2019. I'm one of the owners with my business partner, Lizzie Dakin. We saw an opportunity in the market where primary technology suppliers were shutting down their ability to bring on new TMCs, especially the smaller travel agents, smaller business travel agencies. So, we looked at the opportunity while I was at Concur and got to understand what, the meaning of a VAR was, a value-added reseller. What does that mean? Basically, it's an independent business that, resells and adds some value to the primary supplier's technology. It's not a new business model. It's been around for 20 years. SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, Zoho, pretty much any technology company that you can think of outside of the sort of corporate travel industry sells through VARs. Within the TMC world, well, within the corporate travel, there are resellers, but generally it's the primary supplier that provides to the TMC, and then they sell to their clients. What we noticed over the last few years and why we started is that the smaller business travel agent is now wanting access to that technology, but due to their size and not meeting the requirements of the primary supplier, they're not getting access to that tech. So, that's why we started up the business of Element, and, part of today is just to give you an understanding of what a VAR does, why we're around, and, how we could potentially help you, and also get an understanding from for the suppliers on the call, what they should be looking at in terms of how they can use an indirect sales and marketing channel to get to that smaller market segment within corporate travel, which really is looking for technology and wanting to use it. So our main purpose is pretty simple. We want to enable TMCs, smaller TMCs, to run better on technology, give them access to the technology, but it's more than access. We provide services around that technology. We don't just sell it. We come to you, we put in place a service package, we implement, we support, and we're there to help you get the most out of your technology. So there's no learning curve with the technology that we provide, because you get our expertise from day one. So normally you get some tech, get an online booking tool, you have to go on courses, become certified. You're hoping that you might implement 10 clients in that period of time, and so that you can then get some expertise around it. Actually, when we come in with our technology, or even technology that you have procured by yourselves, is that you get our expertise from day one, and that we're able to give you sort of similar competency as your peers within your peer group, who may already have access to that technology. And part of it is also we're trying to get some of the technology providers who have unfortunately created sort of an elite club by shutting off access to technology. We're trying to get them to open up and start understanding our model, that we actually don't mess with what they do, and we can get them access to a large, to a segment that is not necessarily cost effective for them. So part of what we do is resell the technology. We focus on smaller agencies generally because they don't necessarily have expertise, they don't have the experience. And also, with some of the technology, you may only be, especially client-facing tech, you may only be putting 2, 3, or 4, 5 people onto the technology per year, which then becomes pretty difficult to how do you justify paying someone to manage that technology. It becomes quite difficult. So you probably don't do it. Your clients are wanting it. They go somewhere else because you can't provide it. We're also a deployment partner. As an authorized and certified supplier of our technology, we also have experience with other technology. So you may be able to get the tech yourself, but you, again, don't have the expertise to be able to look after or manage it, or just don't have that demand for it as yet. So, we can come in and we can deploy it and put it in place and look after it for you. We are 100% a service business that sells support. Both Lizzie and myself have worked for and been on your side of the support and deployment of technology from some of the technology providers, which is, here we go, we deploy it, we set you up, we give you 6 weeks of hypercare or whatever you want to call it, and then they walk away. And then you sit behind a support desk. No, we're not about that. We're about making sure that we are part of your business. You are our clients. We're there working as you with your clients to be able to provide client-facing technology, meaning that we can implement and configure that as the project manager within your business, or we can just provide support in the back end. And part of what we do is, help you also train the team, and that is sales and account management training, helping your team to get up to speed. How can they sell it? We will, work with you doing demos. We will support your sales team, but also depending on the demand or the type of technology, as you become more proficient in it and you want someone within your business to start learning more about it, we will gladly train that person to the point where we will still always have some involvement because your contract is with us, but you'll be able to have greater ownership of that technology or range of technologies that you may have looked from us. So again, how does that relate to suppliers? Suppliers need to look at how they can be resell environment. There's a big difference between referral and resell. We get approached a lot by people who want us to refer, and we don't. We want to own the process. We want people to be happy with the support we provide, and that's why we don't do referral. So, always happy to have a chat with suppliers to understand what that means, but ideally it's an environment that we as the reseller have our own instance. We own the contract between us and our clients, and we do all the support, implementation, everything. Our clients don't need to approach the primary supplier because we look after everything. There's a number of number of benefits that we bring. Because of what we do, we're always out there. We're working across, multiple countries, multiple clients. Our expertise is not just related to the UK. We have clients within the UAE, and we have worked across other markets. So when you're looking at best practice, because of the size and the variety of people that we're working with, we're getting to see a lot more how it can work in different environments. We've got vast experience. We're always wanting to get out there and do the best that we can. An example I can give is that we're working with Amadeus and Citrix to understand how we can provide a portal environment of Citrix to their SME or small business travel agencies within the French market who don't necessarily warrant the need or the cost of their own instance of that. We've come up with a plan that we're able to now, we're in the process of planning it with them, how we can launch that for their smaller TMCs so they can have multiple clients using one instance of Citrix. It's pretty basic, but it keeps the cost down and allows them to have the benefits of that technology. And that's the kind of stuff that we can bring in, and that we can, we are looking at to understand how we can take that instance or that type of technology and utilize it for the best in class within that smaller segment of TMC. When you're working with us, basically you're investing in a partner. We're not there to just sell you, take and walk away. We hope to reduce your costs. We are really highly responsive. We've built our business on the back of a very good and well utilized technology platform that allows us to, while we are remote, we can get onto desktops. We have the ability to run conferences. Well, pretty much we can do whatever we need to do within our environment to be able to help manage and be responsive. We are trending and tracking issues and questions. So when we see stuff that we think is applicable, we'll have a chat and say, guys, let's train you and let's give you an understanding about this so you don't have to come to us. We have successfully launched quite a few clients with one online booking tool, including their expense. But we have the ability to also help your clients who may be looking for support on Concur or Citrix. Those two specifically. There's others we have experience on who may be on a direct contract. They're not necessarily getting the support they want from either of those providers. We can come in and we can manage that product on their behalf. And similarly, from a TMC perspective, if you are trying to work out how and what is going to be the next sort of steps for your business in terms of how you're managing technology for your clients, we can do you can take us on for a long-term engagement, short-term, one-off. You've all of a sudden got a rush of, Concur implementations you need done, and you don't have enough people. You can bring us in and ask us to just help you on the one implementation. We're more than happy to do that. And so who are the two people behind it? Obviously myself and my business partner, Lizzie Dakin. I'm sort of sales and account management. Lizzie is technology and services. And as David said earlier, it's been an interesting year. We've really had to understand where we are and what we're doing. We are seeing some positive, positive discussions coming out of where things are going. We're really proud of our partnership with Amadeus when they have looked at creating a new non-TMC indirect sort of sales channel, of which we're one of the first to do that within this new channel. And we helped them. They brought in consultants to do it, and they're really understanding how it is. So my message to everyone is, from a TMC perspective, there is a resource for you if you're needing some support. And from suppliers, really have a think about how you can create a true reseller product, because it is the future. You will manage those larger clients, but we are there to help you get into that smaller segment. And that's where VARs really bring in a lot of value. And, yes, there is some cost and around what you need to do to create it, but we can get you into markets that you won't necessarily go to because they'll be cost prohibitive. And then finally, just one page around where we are at the moment. We've got Citric Travel and Expense. We have another corporate platform from Zenmar. We have a relationship with TravelDo and DCS Plus. We are continuously talking to technology providers out there, and we are hoping, we are really hoping that we will come out of this fine, and looking forward to be able to potentially support some of those on the call here, or your clients, or if there's any of the suppliers who want to have a chat to understand how they can really look at a reseller product, then please get in touch with us. So
Brilliant. Thank you, David. If I can ask you to stop sharing your screen, that'd be much appreciated.
Just getting there. There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm looking around the room. Any questions? Everybody's looking. Those who've got your cameras on, I can't see any questions yet. I don't want to sound like Peter Jones out of Dragon's Den, but what makes your business unique, and what will stop it being copied? So, what's the uniqueness about Element?
Actually, the uniqueness is that we've created a new vertical within an existing business segment, but it is 100% copyable. We copied it from what other people are doing, and honestly, I'd like more entrants to come into the VAR market within corporate travel, because I'd spend more time telling you about what we do than explaining what a VAR is. I use an analogy of Nespresso. When they first came out, they were telling you and explaining to you what a coffee pot is. Then all of a sudden they had competitions, and now they don't tell you what a coffee pot is. They tell you about how good their machine is or how good their coffee is, because you understand the concept of a coffee pot. So, from our perspective, we really hope that we get some other entrants into the market to, not to give us competition, but to get what we do out there.
And do you build your own technology? Because obviously, with your background, can you create bespoke programs and bespoke technology? No.
So the value-added part of what we do is really around the services and what we can do with the technology. We are not a development shop. We don't ever see ourselves building technology, but what we do is that, because of our relationship with our partners, is that we are able to influence, if that's the right word. We can provide, some we can influence, others we will give them some guidance on what we think our clients are saying. So as a smaller client, smaller business, it's always quite difficult to have some influence. Whereas, when with some of the relationships we have, like with Focus, for example, we can go to someone like Citric and say, even they have a relationship, or we could go to Amadeus and say, look, hey, this is what we're talking to, and this is what the 40 members say. And all of a sudden that 60 members becomes quite a powerful voice through us and various things. So we're really there to support that smaller TMC to get what they want out of their technology.
Thank you. And talking to some of the tech suppliers that we've got on this call, what should they be doing when they're thinking about setting up a VAR channel? I mean, is it something they should be considering? Obviously you're going to vouch for it, but what advice would you give? Yeah,
definitely. That's part of the message is looking at it. And it is, there's a couple of things. You need to look at how you're going to manage those partners. What is your technical infrastructure? Can it actually handle properly a reseller environment? But also don't be influenced by opportunistic salespeople who don't necessarily want you to do that because they might want those sales. But you know what? Work out your segments, work out who the customer is that you want to own and who the customer is or segment of customers that you would like somebody else to look after, because there is people wanting technology out there. And at this moment, there's closed clubs of these large enterprise suppliers that have been around is helping new entrants come into the market, but actually they are losing share of market because they're not getting out there.
Fine, okay. I'm looking around, no more questions coming in, I believe, nothing in the chat. So thank you to Gavin for joining us. And once again, Gavin's presentation contact details will be on the BTA website. I'm now going to hand over to our final presenter, which is Kieran Hawhey from Table for One. He's had a successful corporate career for over 25 years, leading international operations for multinationals like Dell and Barclays. His experience spans the tech, financial services, health and wellness industries. He's been traveling extensively on business for over 20 years, a lot of it solo. So when he couldn't find anyone to sit down and have dinner with, he felt compelled to do something about it and created Table for One. So Kieran, I'm going to spotlight you, my friend, and then I'll hand you over to share your screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it. And thank you, Dave, and to the BTA for this wonderful opportunity to meet all of you. I'll just make sure my screen shares, first of all. You can see that.
All good, my friend. Carry on.
I'll actually stop sharing for a moment and then I'll reshare again, if that's okay, just to go off piste for a little while. So really what I want to do, just first of all, is just give you the story of the context to Table for One and where it came from. The inception came from a few years ago. I was in the UK. As Dave mentioned, I've spent 25 years in the corporate world as a business traveler, and I was in Manchester. It was a cold, wet November's day, and I had one of the best days of my career. I'd closed one of the best deals of my career, and I wanted to celebrate, but unfortunately, I was on my own. And I decided to treat myself and, sorry, excuse me, and go into a nice restaurant. And as I was being led to my table, I actually counted 10 other people in the same restaurant also eating alone. And something just felt wrong for me. But as luck would have it, I was put sitting at a table adjacent to a really interesting guy who had actually just exited his own business successfully. And he had just finished a book. The book is called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And he gave me the book that he'd just finished. And we had a really good conversation. And that conversation, that night, that book literally changed my life. And that's really what Table for One is all about. How many of these instances of solo dining are there all around the world in the pre-COVID world and you know, when we emerge from this pandemic? And Table for One is about taking that loneliness, that isolation, and converting it into those life-changing opportunities. So I'll share my screen again. The problem is that loneliness and isolation is a common theme for many business travelers. Half of business trips are taken alone, and a third of business meals are eaten alone. Now that causes loneliness, isolation. You know, people are missing their family, but as well as that, there's business opportunities that are being lost or missed. The person that you might need to speak to could be sitting alone at the restaurant next door or at a table 2 tables away from you, and you just don't make those connections. And Table for One is about solving that problem, and we can solve that problem together. So the solution is to improve that business traveler experience, to give people an alternative to loneliness, to improve their well-being and their mental health by connecting them with other people and taking that loneliness factor away from them. And TMCs can be part of that solution as well. So we together can solve that problem. From a TMC point of view, you can showcase that you're focused on traveler well-being. this can be a mechanism to offer value to your corporates, to their business travelers. It's an innovative, disruptive model. So it's something that showcases you as being innovative. And critically, it injects that feel-good factor back to the business travelers, who are essentially who we all serve here. So Table for One, we connect interesting business travelers all over the world. We make it easy for those connections to be made. We make it easy for the connections to be like-minded, and for the meetings and matches to be interesting. We're creating new opportunities. We're increasing that social interaction, and you know, good company, it's a better experience for everybody. Our model is that we offer, and when I say we, I mean collectively, we offer solo business travelers the opportunity to meet an interesting, like-minded person. We match those people, and then we recommend good places for them to meet. And that could be a restaurant, it could be meeting for dinner, it could be over the weekend, it could be going for a game of golf, but we can facilitate that. The benefits for the business traveler are immense. So it's a fun, engaging experience. It gives them a good feel-good factor, but it also gives them development, personal development and professional development. So you can grow your network, you can create business opportunities. And, you know, nobody likes eating alone. Nobody likes, you know, asking for a table for one. We travel in business for success, and it doesn't make you feel very successful when you go into a restaurant and say, can I have a table for one, please? And the enemy we're fighting against here is the loneliness and isolation. And we all know about loneliness and isolation after the year we've had. And the truth is that business travelers have known about that for a lot longer. It's been a common thread for years. For corporates, we can generate business development opportunities, so a pipeline of new opportunities. From an employee point of view, you're actually converting downtime into business time. So people are working longer and enjoying it. It promotes employee well-being as well. So it's good for the employer's employees. And you know, something that is going to be a factor as we emerge from COVID is that there's going to be more value expected from business trips. So people are want to get more out of each business trip that they go on. And this is a way of essentially cramming more value into that business trip and creating new opportunities. And it gives us potential access to decision makers in other companies. What we found so far is that the people that are using Table for One are the more senior people. They're the CEOs, they're the C-suite, they're the directors, they're the decision makers. And the reason for that is because they can see the value in networking, and they can see the value in growing their network and getting more value out of their time. Post-COVID-19, so we expect this to be part of the solution as we emerge. We're not talking about, you know, today while we're in lockdown, getting people sitting down. We're talking about building this functionality together so that as we emerge from COVID, we can offer value, we can offer something different. What we are finding is that there's a strong appetite for disruption and innovation. Innovation. So people are open and hungry to do things new, particularly when we can add value and we can add revenue. As I mentioned, there's more being expected from business trips. So that threshold is increased. In order to get sign off from your line manager to go on a business trip, you need to evidence what it is that you're going to deliver from that business trip. If part of that business trip involves meeting somebody who could be a potential partner, whether that's a customer or a supplier, then that helps with that approval process. And the hospitality and travel markets are highly competitive. So we're talking to hotels and hospitality companies, and they are super hungry for a solution like us that can, you know, help them get people into their restaurants and help them get people back spending money and attracting the business spend. We're very open to partners. We want to work with people who are open-minded, who are innovative, who have this win-win mindset. from our point of view, we're easy to work with, we're easy to integrate with, we're protecting the privacy. We're not a dating app, we're not playing in that space. We are a safe platform that is very much targeted in the professional space. The icing on the cake, and when I talk about this, I mean for TMCs, it's free for TMCs to use. So it's something that doesn't cost you anything. It's something that adds value to you, to your corporates, and to your business travelers. But potentially, we can offer a revenue stream as well to TMCs with the right partnership deals, and that's something that we're keen to talk to people about and to have those discussions. So this is potentially a brand new revenue stream that doesn't exist. We also, with Table for One, the demographic that we have are highly attractive. There is the opportunity to advertise and market on it. We can be very targeted and very intelligent with geolocation and with the data that we have about the business travelers to target exactly the right people. In terms of where we are in our journey or evolution, we launched an app, an MVP app on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store at the end of 2018. We've had over 50,000 downloads in more than 100 countries. So, you know, there is a proven global appetite and demand for this. We're developing our version 2 at the moment, which will facilitate API connectivity in and out. So that's to facilitate businesses partnering with us and to really allow us to scale the business in a B2B to C manner and really grow it and scale it. This works best with scale. So the more people we have on, the better the connections that we can make are. So we are currently raising seed funding, and that's to pay for this journey that we're on. We'd love to have further discussions with you. We'd love to explore how we can help any of your businesses. We're very open to a chat and a conversation. I'm proud to be joined on the call by my co-founder, David Taylor, who's a veteran of the travel industry. David has worked in senior roles for the likes of Sky Junction, Kerzner, WorldSpan, Apodo, BA, and either of us are very happy to have a chat, see how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran. If I can ask you to stop sharing your screen, and once again, we will share this on afterwards, which is brilliant. As somebody who's never used, and I know it's not dating, how does it actually work? How does the actual system? I know you put the app, but I mean, do you put in where you're going and people connect? How does the system actually work?
Yeah, so that's essentially how it works. You say where you're going to be, and we can see the other people that are going to be in the same destination at the same time. We use our own algorithm and AI to identify who would be the best matches for each other, who would have the most in common, based on the preferences that you've given us, based on the information that we've garnered from you, and then we recommend who you can meet. That's done on an anonymous basis. That's hard to say initially, until there's a good match between two people, and then once they connect, then they can chat amongst each other, and we will then recommend to them somewhere that's suitable for their own preferences to meet, whether that's, you know, if there's no point in sending two vegans to a steakhouse. So, you know, if there's a restaurant between the two of them that is suitable for them, we'll recommend that they go there and meet up there, and they can chat within the platform. Now our next version will have further functionality, but that's the fundamental basis of how it works.
But the whole thing is put on people bringing the trust element. I mean, how do you vet with respect to people can just come on and say, this is who I am, and they're not really, I mean, is it all done on background check? I mean, how do you? How secure
firstly,
is it?
Yeah, firstly, we use people's LinkedIn profiles to register and log in. So, that's primarily what we use as our tool for safety. Some of the feedback we've got from female business travelers in particular is that they would be quite interested in meeting other female business travelers, and that's something that is available. So you can opt for that on the platform and on the app. And then for the next version, we have higher thresholds of security planned as well.
Okay. And a question here: can the app integrate with travelers' online in itineraries? So can it be added in?
Yeah, that's a V2 version 2. So that's part of our design and build spec for the next version. The app at the moment can't, but we're developing a broader platform, which the app forms a component part of that, and that platform absolutely will be able to integrate into itineraries.
And without digging too deep, how do you earn your revenue? How do you as a company make your revenue?
Yeah, so that's a great question. As I said, it's free for the usage. We make our revenue by steering the matches to partner establishments. So we're partnering with hotels, we're partnering with hospitality companies, and if we send 2 business travelers to a hotel restaurant, then we do a rev share with the hotel for sending those business travelers to that space. And business travelers are the customers that they're typically trying to attract, because they're typically less price sensitive, and they're the customers they're trying to get into the restaurant. The other point is for example, from a restaurant point of view, every time that they've got a solo table in the restaurant or a solo diner in the restaurant, they're losing money because there's at least 1, if not 3 seats at the same table empty. So it's in their interest to have higher utilization.
Okay. And you talk about the version 2 all being constructed at the moment. I presume you'd be interested to get some feedback as to what maybe our members and people who are using it will be interested to make version 2 the newer version, so to speak.
Absolutely. So the right time to make any changes is when you're building a new version. So we're very, very welcome to any suggestions, feedback, ideas. Going as far as specific customization requests, now's the time to do it, because it's easier to do as part of a full version upgrade.
And you talk about the hotels, but you mentioned golf as well. I'm slightly biased here, but you have a database. I mean, is that how it all works at the moment? Or are you still creating it? How do you set up the meetings?
So that's what we're doing as well. So we're building that database of partners to send people to. We have a global concierge partner that we're partnering with already, that has 2 million hospitality product offerings around the world. So we have something in place, but we're keen to work with any hospitality partner that's trying to attract business spend as well.
Brilliant. Well, there's no more questions coming in, so Kieran, I'll thank you for your time. Thank everybody for joining. So my thanks to Tom from RiskPal, Elise from Skytra, to Gavin from Element, and Kieran from Table for One. I hope you've all found this useful. We will put all the presentations, all the contact details will be on the BTA website as soon as we can get around to doing that. We've got quite a lot going on at the moment, but we'll try and do that for you as soon as we can. Thanks everybody for your attention. Thanks to all our presenters for joining us this morning. If there's no more questions, we'll leave it there, and I'll give you a bit of time back. And we look forward to seeing you on our next BTA event. So take care, everybody, and thanks much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks.